What if the person who saves your million-dollar empire turns out to be the one you never bothered to notice? What if the janitor cleaning your office at night holds the key to exposing the biggest betrayal of your career? Today's story will show you how a mysterious note left by a single father working the night shift nearly crashed a $200 million deal and revealed a conspiracy that went straight to the top. This isn't just about corporate greed. This is about courage, truth, and how sometimes the most unlikely heroes change everything. If you love stories of unexpected heroes and justice, hit subscribe and let's dive in. The first pale light of dawn had barely touched the glass towers when Alexandra Weber stood frozen behind her mahogany desk. There, centered perfectly on her keyboard, lay a manila envelope with no markings. No sender, no explanation, just the weight of something that felt like destiny wrapped in paper. Inside was a document that made her blood run cold, an exact copy of the merger agreement she was supposed to sign tomorrow. The deal that would make Weber Dynamics the largest consulting firm on the continent. But this copy had been marked up in red ink with surgical precision. Next to Clause 12.7, someone had written in bold handwriting, "This clause will destroy everything you've built. They're stealing your company from the inside. You have 24 hours. Alexandra's hands trembled. No one had access to this document except her inner circle. The merger with Technova Industries had been kept under the tightest security. Even the board hadn't seen final terms yet. She slammed the intercom. "Security. Now, I want every camera feed from this floor reviewed. Everything from midnight onwards." Within minutes, her head of security burst through the doors with a tablet and 2 compliance officers. The footage was grainy but unmistakable, a man in custodial overalls moving through her office. He collected trash, wiped surfaces, then placed the envelope on her desk and vanished. "Name," Alexandra demanded. "Marcus Fisher. Night shift custodian since April. Single father, clean background, keeps to himself. Bring him up. Now." Marcus entered with quiet dignity, tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair touched by gray. His eyes held the weight of someone who had seen too much truth for one lifetime. Despite pushing a mop for months, his posture suggested this wasn't where his story was supposed to end. Alexandra didn't waste time. "How did you get access to confidential documents?" Marcus met her gaze steadily. "No one gave me access. I didn't need it." "Explain." He gestured toward her printer. "People print test copies when nervous. They forget to clear print queues. When you see the same document reprinted at 2 a.m. multiple times, you notice patterns. And you took it upon yourself to read confidential information?" "I took it upon myself to recognize when a company is about to be stolen from its founder." Marcus paused. "I've seen this exact playbook before. Same clause structure, same legal language, same outcome. You're a janitor. What could you know about merger law?" Marcus smiled grimly. "I used to be senior financial analyst at Morrison & Associates. I uncovered the $420 million accounting fraud in 2019, the one that sent 2 CEOs to prison." He watched her face change. "I lost everything trying to tell the truth: job, reputation, marriage. Everything except my daughter." Morrison & Associates. Alexandra knew that case. The biggest financial scandal of the decade, exposed by an anonymous whistleblower whose identity was never revealed. The surgical precision of that analysis, it had been brilliant. "Prove it," she said quietly. Marcus pulled out a folded termination letter from Morrison & Associates and a copy of the original fraud report bearing his analytical fingerprints. Clause 12.7 transfers voting control to a shell company in an offshore jurisdiction, Marcus continued. "Once Technova owns that shell, they control Weber Dynamics. You'll be CEO in name only." Alexandra's mind raced. David Mitchell, her COO and closest friend, had pushed hardest for this merger. He'd negotiated most terms, assuring her every detail protected her interests. "Who else knows? Just you and me. But whoever designed this will realize someone's onto them. When they do, they'll move fast." Alexandra thought about David. 8 years building Weber Dynamics together. The idea of betrayal felt impossible, but pieces began falling into place. His insistence on compartmentalizing merger details, suggestions she stepped back from operations, casual mentions of others handling administrative burdens. Why risk everything to tell me? Marcus was quiet. Because staying silent destroyed my life the first time. I watched people lose retirement savings while executives covered up fraud. I won't make that mistake again. Something in his conviction made Alexandra's decision. What do you need? Access to secure servers. Financial records from 6 months. We need to trace that shell company's ownership before they realize we're onto them. Alexandra moved to her safe, pulled out a security card. This gives you clearance. But Marcus, if we're caught investigating without board approval, they'll destroy both of us. I've been destroyed before. I survived. Marcus met her eyes. Question is whether you're ready to risk everything for truth. Alexandra looked at her empire built through determination and brilliance. Tomorrow she was supposed to sign it away for financial security. Now she realized it might be signing her corporate death warrant. Let's find out what David's been hiding. That night, Marcus returned not as custodian, but as a man with a mission. His daughter Emma was safely asleep at the babysitter's, clutching her stuffed elephant. She'd asked why he looked serious, and he'd said he was working on something that might change their lives. The security badge granted access to floors he'd only cleaned. Walking through executive corridors in civilian clothes, Marcus felt the weight of what they were attempting. Any of this could result in criminal charges if discovered. In the secure data center, financial records painted a disturbing picture. Over 8 months, David had systematically moved Weber Dynamics' most valuable contracts into subsidiary companies. On paper, smart asset management. In reality, preparation for takeover. The shell company in Clause 12.7 was owned by a trust in a jurisdiction with strict privacy laws. But Marcus knew how to follow digital fingerprints. 3 hours later, he'd traced ownership through 4 layers back to a holding company controlled by Technova Industries. David Mitchell was listed as silent partner, set to receive substantial payout once merger completed and Weber Dynamics was absorbed. As Marcus prepared to leave, he heard footsteps. Security rounds weren't scheduled yet. Someone else was in the building. He quickly saved evidence to encrypted drive and deleted search history. Footsteps approached with voices, 2 men speaking urgently. Marcus recognized one, David Mitchell. Timeline has to be accelerated, David was saying. Someone's asking questions. We move signing to tomorrow morning. Will Weber agree? The second voice was unfamiliar. Alexandra trusts me completely. I'll say Technova's board is nervous about markets. She'll see it as taking control. David's confidence was chilling. By tomorrow afternoon, Weber Dynamics will be ours, and she'll be a figurehead with a fancy title. Marcus pressed against the wall, heart pounding. They were moving faster than expected. He and Alexandra had hours, not days. The voices faded toward David's office. Marcus waited, then made his way to the elevator. Tomorrow would be a battle for Weber Dynamics' soul, and he'd just armed Alexandra with the ammunition she needed. But David Mitchell was too smart and ruthless to go down easily. When cornered animals attack, they go for the throat. The next morning arrived gray and foreboding. Alexandra sat in her office, staring at documents Marcus had delivered at midnight. Bank transfers, shell companies, ownership structures, undeniable proof that David had been systematically dismantling her company for months. The intercom buzzed. Ms. Weber, Mr. Mitchell is here. Says it's urgent regarding the merger. Send him in. David entered with confident stride, impeccably tailored suit, warm, reassuring smile, the same smile that had convinced her to trust him with her company's future. Alex, we need to talk. Technova's board got nervous about market volatility overnight. They want to sign today. This morning. Alexandra kept her face neutral. That's significant acceleration. It shows commitment. If we don't move now, they might look elsewhere. David leaned forward. Sometimes leadership means decisive moves when opportunity knocks. Trust me, this is the best thing for the company. Trust. The word hit like a slap. Of course, you've never steered me wrong. Something flickered across David's face. Great. I'll have legal prepare everything for 11 a.m. Technova's executives are flying in. After David left, Alexandra called Marcus. They're moving today, 11 o'clock. Then we move now. The old conference room on 32nd floor. 20 minutes. The abandoned conference room became their war room. Financial documents, corporate filings, bank records painted systematic betrayal going back almost a year. David's been moving your most valuable clients to subsidiaries he controls, Marcus explained. Looks like diversification, but he's preparing to take them when he jumps to Technova. Alexandra studied the manipulation invisible to most people, creating illusion that Weber depends on Technova while setting Technova up to absorb our assets. Once merger completes, Clause 12.7 ensures you have no voting power to stop it. CEO in name only. But why? We built this together. He could have been my partner for life. Marcus looked at her with compassion of someone who'd learned hard truths about human nature. Some people prefer owning a piece of someone else's empire to sharing credit for building their own. David doesn't want to be your partner, he wants to be your replacement. So what do? Board expects me to sign at 11. If I refuse without explanation, they'll vote me out and install David as interim CEO. Marcus worked through possibilities. We present evidence to the board, but strategically. David's been building relationships for months. Some board members might be compromised. How do we know who to trust? We don't. So we make evidence so compelling it doesn't matter. Marcus connected his laptop to the projector. We build a presentation that lays out the entire conspiracy, so thorough and undeniable that even David's allies abandon him. For 2 hours, they worked with forensic intensity. Marcus's financial analysis expertise proved invaluable, constructing a comprehensive yet accessible narrative. Every transaction documented, every maneuver explained, every element of conspiracy laid bare. We need one more thing, Alexandra said. David on record admitting to conspiracy. That's dangerous. If he realizes what we're doing, David's weakness is his ego. He can't resist explaining how clever he's been. Alexandra's voice carried steel of someone who'd built an empire and wouldn't let it be stolen. If I approach this right, he'll incriminate himself. You're talking about wearing a wire. I'm talking about getting justice. At 10:30 a.m., 30 minutes before scheduled signing, Alexandra walked into David's office with manufactured desperation. Hair slightly disheveled, makeup showing stress, hands trembling as she closed the door. David, I'm having second thoughts about the merger. David looked up with practiced concern, but Alexandra caught the irritation flash before he controlled it. Alex, what's wrong? Maybe we're moving too fast. Will I still have real control, or just be a figurehead? You'll be CEO of a larger, more powerful organization. Yes, there'll be new stakeholders, but that's growth. New stakeholders, like Technova's board, the shell company in Clause 12.7. David's mask slipped slightly. Eyes narrowed. You've been reading fine print very carefully. It's my company. Shouldn't I understand what I'm signing? David approached with predator's confidence. Alex, you're overthinking. Clause 12.7 is standard governance language. Ensures operational decisions without bureaucratic processes, like who stays and goes, which contracts get renewed, whether CEO has actual authority or becomes well-paid spokesperson. David stopped directly in front of her. I've been your partner 8 years. Have I ever done anything not in your best interest? The question hung like a challenge. Alexandra thought about all the hidden evidence, shell companies, secret partnerships orchestrated by the man she trusted with everything. I hope not. But what if I change my mind about signing? David's smile became predatory. We have contracts with Technova, obligations to shareholders, a board expecting decisive leadership. Backing out would be seen as fundamental leadership failure. The board would question your judgment. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining reality. This merger happens with or without your participation. Question is whether you benefit or get replaced by someone who will. Replaced by who? David's smile turned cold. Boards discussed contingency plans. If you can't fulfill CEO duties, other candidates are ready. Candidates who understand this merger's necessity. Candidates like you? I've always been willing to serve in whatever capacity needed. Technova's been impressed with my strategic vision. They see me bridging transition between old Weber dynamics and the new organization we're creating. So the merger happens regardless of what I want, because it's what's best for everyone. You remain CEO with understanding that major decisions get made collaboratively with Technova's leadership. David's tone became patronizing. Think of it as gaining allies rather than losing independence. And the shell company with voting control. David's eyes sharpened. How do you know about voting structure? I read every word, David. Unlike some people, I don't sign without understanding exactly what they mean. Alexandra moved toward the door. See you at the signing. As she left, Alexandra's hands shook not from fear, but rage. The recording device had captured everything: threats, conspiracy admission, plans to replace her. Combined with Marcus's financial evidence, they had enough ammunition to destroy David's career. But something felt wrong. David had seemed almost too willing to reveal his plans, as if he knew something she didn't, as if the conversation had gone exactly as he wanted. At 11 a.m., the Weber Dynamics boardroom filled with the company's most powerful voices. 12 directors around polished mahogany, each representing millions in investment and years of guidance. Alexandra sat at the head, looking confident despite inner turmoil. David entered with lawyers and Technova executives, filling the room with corporate conquest energy. He nodded to Alexandra with the same warm smile worn for 8 years, but she now saw the predator lurking behind friendly facade. Before we proceed with signing, Alexandra began steadily, the board needs to consider some information. David's smile flickered. Alex, Technova's team flew in specifically for this. Perhaps administrative matters afterward. This isn't administrative. This is about fundamental deal structure and whether it serves Weber Dynamics' interests. Alexandra nodded to Marcus waiting by the door. I've asked Marcus Fisher to present findings that came to light. Board members exchanged glances, seeing the custodian approach the presentation screen. Confusion rippled around the table. Who is this person? Demanded Robert Chun, longest-serving member. Mr. Fisher is former senior financial analyst conducting independent audit of merger terms. What he's discovered changes everything. The next 30 minutes unfolded like masterclass in corporate forensics. Marcus methodically presented evidence, analytical expertise, turning complex maneuvers into clear deception narrative. Bank transfers, shell companies, secret partnerships, every conspiracy element laid bare with surgical precision. Board sat stunned as Marcus revealed how David had systematically moved Weber Dynamics' valuable assets into companies he secretly controlled. How merger clause would transfer voting control to Technova through offshore entities. How David was positioned for substantial compensation, facilitating the takeover. These transactions were designed to make Weber Dynamics appear dependent on Technova while preparing to hand over core asset control, Marcus explained. Board member Sarah Williams leaned forward, pale. Are you saying Mr. Mitchell planned to sell the company out from under us? I'm saying Mr. Mitchell systematically dismantled Weber Dynamics for months, preparing to transfer control while maintaining illusion that Ms. Weber would remain in charge. All eyes turned to David, who'd sat in ominous silence. Finally, he stood, composed despite devastating revelations. Interesting fiction, but I question motives of someone secretly accessing confidential information while employed as custodian. David faced the board. Real question is why Ms. Weber would trust a man with documented corporate espionage history over the executive team that built this company. David was attacking Marcus's credibility instead of addressing evidence. Mr. Fisher was terminated from Morrison & Associates for unauthorized system access. He's disgruntled former analyst with grudge against corporate leadership. Ms. Weber's been manipulated by someone with clear agenda to disrupt this merger. Board members began whispering. Marcus's custodian background combined with Morrison history was being weaponized against him. But Alexandra had prepared for this moment. She activated her phone, connecting to sound system. Before discussing Mr. Fisher's motivations, the board should hear this conversation I recorded with Mr. Mitchell today. David's face went white as his own voice filled the room, clearly admitting to conspiracy. Threats, replacement plans, secret Technova partnerships, every damning word echoed through the boardroom. The merger happens because it's what's best for everyone involved. You'll remain CEO with understanding that major decisions get made collaboratively with Technova's leadership team. Deafening silence followed. Board members stared at David in shock, while others frantically reviewed financial documents. Robert Chin spoke first, voice heavy with authority. Mr. Mitchell, the board requires immediate explanation for these allegations. David looked around, seeing his empire crumbling in real time. The friendly mask finally fell completely, revealing cold ambition beneath. You want explanation? Fine. Weber Dynamics has been stagnating under Alexandra's leadership for 2 years. We've lost market share while she's played it safe. Technova offered a chance to become a major industry player, but that required real leadership, not cautious micromanagement that's defined this company. Room erupted in angry voices, but David continued venomously. I've spent 8 years watching opportunities slip away because Alexandra couldn't make hard decisions. The Technova merger was going to save this company, even if it meant removing leadership holding us back. Alexandra stood slowly, voice cutting through chaos like ice. The merger was going to destroy this company, David. It was going to eliminate Weber Dynamics as independent entity and turn it into Technova subsidiary. You weren't saving anything, you were selling it. The vote was swift and unanimous. David Mitchell was terminated immediately, escorted by security while Technova executives watched in stunned silence. The merger was canceled, and Alexandra retained full control. As the boardroom cleared, Alexandra realized the real victory wasn't saving her company, it was learning to trust the right people, even when they came in unexpected packages. That evening, as city lights twinkled below, Alexandra found herself in the small break room where Marcus used to eat solitary lunches. He was there sharing a sandwich with his daughter Emma, who was coloring at one of the small tables. "You know," Alexandra said, sitting across from them, "I have an opening for chief financial officer. Someone with forensic analysis experience and proven track record uncovering corporate fraud." Marcus looked up, surprised. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you partnership. Someone I can trust to tell me truth, even when it's hard to hear." Emma looked up from her coloring book, studying Alexandra with serious child expression. "Are you going to be nice to my daddy?" Alexandra smiled, feeling something warm and genuine for the first time in months. "I'm going to be fair to your daddy, and I'm going to listen when he talks." Emma nodded solemnly, then returned to coloring. "Good. Grown-ups should listen more." As Marcus accepted the position and they discussed Weber Dynamics' future, Alexandra realized that sometimes the most important voices come from unexpected places. Sometimes the person who saves your empire is the one you never thought to notice. 3 months later, Weber Dynamics had not only survived but emerged stronger. The conspiracy publicity actually enhanced their reputation, positioning them as an organization valuing integrity over profit margins. New clients flocked to a firm that had proven it would fight for what was right. Marcus's transition from custodian to CFO became corporate legend. His first act was implementing transparency protocols, making it impossible to hide financial maneuvers. His second was establishing whistleblower protection, encouraging all employees to speak up when seeing something wrong. But the most significant change was in Alexandra herself. The woman who'd built walls to protect her empire now opened doors to new perspectives. She instituted truth sessions, where employees at every level could voice concerns directly to leadership. Emma Fisher became something of a company mascot, often spending after-school hours in the executive suite. Employees adored her uncanny ability to sense adult dishonesty. More than once, Alexandra found herself making better decisions after Emma's innocent observations revealed truths sophisticated analysis had missed. The mysterious note Marcus had left that fateful morning had been more than conspiracy warning, had been an invitation to rediscover the values that inspired building Weber Dynamics originally. It reminded her that the most important battles aren't fought in boardrooms, but in quiet moments when individuals choose between self-interest and integrity. The janitor's note had saved more than a company, it had saved the souls of everyone brave enough to choose integrity over convenience. Because the most powerful weapon against corruption isn't sophisticated technology or complex legal strategies. It's the simple courage of ordinary people who refuse to stay silent when witnessing injustice. Sometimes they carry mops and speak truth, and that makes all the difference in the world.